Welcome to the Nerd Social Club podcast, episode 99. Woo!
It's hard to believe.
I'm feeling it. I'm feeling the 99.
Feeling it, feeling the groove, feeling the age of it.
Feeling the age of it, yeah. Feeling the definitely. Well, I had my vaccine this week, so.
Hey,
So,
I've got my second one tomorrow.
Oh, America, and your private healthcare, thinking you're all special. Yeah, that's till you get run over and they ask you for your credit card, sir.
Ooh, get me in my insurance
Yes.
where it hurts.
Yes. There you go. Yeah, some good news this week. The trailers are starting to flood in. People are getting excited to go back to the cinema, and get back involved with watching movies the way they should be watched. And obviously there was a big Marvel presentation which we will speak about in a little bit. We had the Bad Batch, the first ever episode of Bad Batch. I know we've had a Clone Wars Bad Batch episode, but this was the first ever one. We'll talk about that as well, and we'll also talk about For All Mankind. We did say we'd talk about it this week because we spoke about it last week, but we didn't really want to get into it because it was
Austin hadn't seen it.
Austin hadn't seen it, and we said we'd give everyone a chance. So we'll talk about that at the end because obviously, again, that's something that people might not have watched. We're trying to get people into it because it's such a good show. It really is such a good show. So if you have seen it, we will speak about that later on in the episode. We will give you plenty of warning. But, we always like to talk about what we've watched this week, and I tell you what, it's been a bumper week. Certainly for myself. So what has caught your eye this week? What have you been watching, Aaron?
I also have watched a lot this week. I'm quite impressed how much I was able to get through. But one of the things I started with, other than the things that we have both watched together, was Mitchell's versus the Machines on Netflix.
Oh, excellent!
Which I've got to say, bloody hilarious.
I've seen
anyone who's. Go on.
No, I was just going to say, I seen the trailer for this a while ago, and I know it was slated to go in the on the big screen, and the trailer was amazing because it felt like it was like this cool little cartoon about a family and their adventure to get the girl to college, and then out of nowhere it becomes like this monster magic robot fighting animated movie.
I mean, essentially that's it. Like, it's the animation style is solid because it's from this obviously Sony Animation Studios, and it's that same animation style that they had for Into the Spider-Verse, and it just works. Like, and this one's really silly. Like, it's almost like the whole video or the whole movie itself is kind of shot from the point of view of like a crazy amateur director that's shooting it. So like every time she's talking, there's little like emojis popping up and things going off on the sides, and it just emphasizes certain things with like they're trying to get across. But the humor in it is hilarious. It is such a funny movie, and it's one that will please all ages, families, couples. Watching it by yourself, just such a good watch, and the acting in it was phenomenal.
Well, it's a Thingill movie, isn't it?
Lord and Miller,
who obviously
exactly.
I think they originally made the Lego movie, was it?
They did,
That's when they first sort of come on my radar, and then they were supposed to make Solo and got fired because they were clearly making it the way people at Star Wars were very uncomfortable with. And then they made arguably one of the greatest superhero films of all time, which is Into the Spider-Verse. I mean, I can't honestly...
Definitely one of the best Spider-Man films.
It's incredible. Easily. It's one of the best for me. I think it's one of the best superhero movies, full stop. I mean, I've got no problem sort of merging animation and real life movies together, and I just think it's so good because of the generally because of the heart in it. The heart, it's
absolutely.
And
that's the thing with Spider-Verse. It hits on so many different levels. The story, the character work, the music that goes along with it, the animation style. Like, it checks so many boxes, and that's what like Mitchell's versus the Machines. It's a different level of film, but it's still funny. It works, and it's
Yeah.
kind of sad in a way. Like, don't get me wrong. Netflix are probably like, this is awesome.
Yeah.
They're probably bringing in some great views.
Yeah.
But this is one that had it hit when people are a bit more less restrictive in being able to go to the cinema. This was one that probably would have done really, really well at the cinema, taking in some good numbers, because it's one of those movies that would have done really well as far as like a word of mouth, like, oh, you've got to go see it. It's funny.
It's interesting.
It doesn't matter who you see it with.
It's interesting that they didn't leave it a couple more months, but I suppose these things probably went up for sale during the pandemic, and they've decided to bring it out. But that's definitely one for over the weekend. I think I'll be looking at over the weekend.
Two other shows I watched, which kind of off the cuff, not really being talked about much. The first one was a little bit of an older one, The Morning Show, which is also an Apple Plus original. I know we've been jumping on the Apple Plus train at the moment, and we both kind of made fun of it at first as far as a streaming service, but The Morning Show is very good. So it tracks an American news show, and two of the anchors, it's a male and female, like beloved hosts, like almost like mum and dad of America, the morning TV guys. And the male host is like that first opening 5 minutes, you found out he's involved in a sexual harassment scandal. He's fired from the show.
So quite
and
realistic.
Then it's just,
So quite realistic.
Oh yeah. Well, and it's funny because me and my wife were big fans of the Today Show in America on NBC, and it almost like feels like it's beat for beat what happened on the Today Show with Matt Lauer. There's certain things that happen, you're like, I'm pretty sure I saw that in the news. But it's good. It's really good. Most of the show is kind of like, it's behind the scenes. It's kind of like the complexities and the politics of the office relationships there, and you've got like some of the star, like, which is Jennifer Aniston, who's the female co-host, and just how like on what level she's operating on, and she's trying to compete with these like executives, these high money executives and things like that. And this woman basically gets drafted in from this lower tier rural media company essentially as the co-host, and it's fascinating to watch. It's only one season, it's 10 episodes, but it's really, really good. Jennifer Aniston, Reese Witherspoon, Billy Crudup, the guy who played Dr. Manhattan in The Watchmen. He's fantastic in it. Really, just like this really chaotic, like likable, weird character, but he plays this like big money executive, this big media kind of tycoon, and he's off the cuff, man. He's funny. He's just weird. He's a very weird character, but very, very good show. And I believe that's coming back for season 2. I think they're waiting to announce a trailer or something in the next month or so. Last one I was watching this week, which kind of caught me off guard because it's a network TV show, and I'm usually a bit dubious on some of the network TV stuff. It's a show on NBC called Debris. And it basically shows it's post 6 months, but in that 6 month time frame, this alien ship has exploded or hit something, and the debris of the ship has come crash down to Earth. And basically, wherever it crashes, it's causing these really weird, like, not catastrophic, but there's like really bad events within the area it lands, and each piece of debris from the ship is causing different phenomenon to happen. So it ends up being almost like it's very Fringe, and I loved Fringe. Like Fringe was my bag. Absolutely
incredible show,
and it definitely has that Fringe feel. The music's really like odd and offbeat, and some of the things that happen are kind of like, it's really interesting. The one episode, this one guy, like, his house got impacted by debris, and he keeps getting cloned. And they keep finding like copies of this guy all over the place. Excellent. And they're trying to find the original guy. It's a weird show, and I'm surprised it's on network TV. But as I'm watching more and more, I'm getting really, really into it. It's a very good show. I don't think it's out in the UK yet, but when it does, it's definitely worth a watch.
See, they're those kind of shows that always have a really good premise, and it just depends, I suppose, sort of when you get halfway through the first season, whether they can keep the premise going. The best shows do. But I seen you talking about that early on. It certainly sounds like one to watch. Just without going into spoilers, What have you made of the Handmaid's Tale so far?
It's dark.
Yeah.
I mean, the show's dark. Like,
Yeah, we know
it's a silly thing to say, but like, it's season 4 has started. Like, I think in the prior seasons, June's always battled with that kind of like morality of trying to be like a good person, but knowing she has to fight back. And I think now she's in season 4, she's tipped the scale, and like she's just had enough. I think the end of season 3 with everything that happened. I think she's just fully tipped the scale. But again, this show does such a good job of taking those like certain elements and making them horrifying. And it's hard to say without going into it, but like there's just a certain thing.
It's a horrible place.
It is. And it's one to do with the kids. I want to talk about it more, but I can't. It's just a good. It's good, but it's been very dark. Have you had the chance to catch up on some of the episodes yet?
No, it's not.
Okay.
It's not available here yet, and I just haven't had a chance. I know there's 3 episodes.
Yep.
No, I'm looking forward to watching it. Really am, because it's a top show. It's another one of those shows which is like it's gone under the radar slightly. I think like people have heard about it but never really committed to it. So I don't think people.
I think also people like. When I've mentioned it to people, they seem cautious about it.
I don't think people quite understand what it is.
I don't know.
I don't think people quite understand what it is. I think a lot of people think it's like something to do with just like servants or something, or servitude or something. I don't think they quite understand me. And don't get me wrong, this show 2 years ago was so close to reality in terms of how it starts, and that's what was the most terrifying thing. I'm hoping we've gone away from that now. And but a couple of years ago, it really was far too close. And I know people may have looked at it from the outside going, no, that's not right. But when you watch the scenes in it that are the beginnings, the flashbacks in it of how it all started, Jesus, far too close. And I know
it's unsettling.
And the irony is, the book was written in the 50s, I think, wasn't it? So
yeah, it was written a long time ago. Like, it's kind of like Margaret Atwood's kind of like, I didn't expect this. And the show's been so successful, actually, it's gotten Margaret Atwood to come out, and she's writing a second book. And I think she's already
written it, signed. She already read the book.
Oh, that's right. I think it came out last year. Now I think about it. But I think that book has exclusively been signed to Hulu. Cool. So I think at some point when this Handmaid's Tale finishes, they're going to do almost like a sequel series for it, like 15 years in the future.
Excellent. And you watched Mythic Quest as well, didn't you?
Oh, I did watch Mythic Quest. It was so good. Definitely got those kind of weird. It's a little bit more toned down than. I'm gonna think of the name.
It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia.
And so yeah. It's got similar types of humor, like Rob McElhenney. Plays like a character. You can kind of see that some of those parallels. Yeah, it's such a funny.
Well, it's got a bit more structure to it, hasn't it? It's got a bit more structure than it's not just a one-off story. It's linear. It's got like nice touches in. It's a good show. It's a really good show. It was I didn't know what to expect. And there's how many episodes? You've watched it all, haven't you?
Yeah, 9 episodes.
So that episode in the middle is so weird, isn't it? But it's also absolutely amazing because it does pay off.
Spectacular.
Yeah. So in Mythic Quest, basically it's
heartbreaking, actually. Like,
so basically it's a show about. The show is about a gaming studio that have this online game that is, one of these games that is always getting played all over the world. They're having to bring out all new.
One of the top played games.
Yeah, they're having to bring out all new stuff for it all the time to keep it fresh. But in the middle, there's a one-off episode set like 15 years before. And it doesn't really make any sense, but then it comes back in the last episode. And it's so good. This little one-off, because it's very very bittersweet. A very bittersweet episode. Basically about like following your dream, but then losing the dream, like money taking over, losing
sight of why you started it in the first place. Yeah,
and it revolves around a couple, and it's just this one episode, and it's when you're watching, you're like, what's this got to do anything else? Because it doesn't involve any of the characters. It's very. But
and
then,
I was gonna say, and there's a lot of time jumps as well.
yeah,
Like you see the progression of
it's
like
very
what
strange.
they're
But
doing.
it's a great show. Second season's coming out tomorrow.
Yes, yeah, tomorrow. First episode.
Well timed.
Yeah. The one thing that made me laugh is their take on like streamers and internet culture. I mean, because obviously it's an online game, so you're constantly seeing that like their opinion, like their kind of take on online gaming communities, and oh my god, it's
I
absolutely
actually,
hilarious.
I actually felt that episode probably more than a lot of the other episodes. So there's an episode where basically they set a girl up who works for the company. She's a game tester, and they give her an online profile and just get her sitting in front of, because there's a kid in it who's got like millions of views. Yeah, there's a kid and he just plays the game, and they've got to keep him sweet because he plays the game every day. So
he's like 10 million followers,
and like everything he says is like he's basically like the emperor in Gladiator. It's like he's giving them the thumbs up or the thumbs down, and so,
he gives out buttholes.
Yeah. So they decide to set up their own. They bring a girl in to get her online, and it's just like the comments, looking at the comments as she's playing the game live, and it's so relevant, obviously, to what I do. Following, like, just watching the comments. I mean, very relevant to what I'm watching, what we're looking at now with the comments. I mean, they're all nice so far. Everyone's been nice. Some actual relevant questions, which is good. So yeah, it was, but it's a great show. It is a really good show, and it's one of those shows again, like we were saying. Someone in the comments there is Hayden Gaskell says For All Mankind and C on Apple TV or top drawer. Now, I haven't seen C, but For All Mankind is fantastic.
Absolutely.
You've got this. You've got Ted Lasso. Is just incredible. It's just absolutely incredible. What a show!
Top drawer.
What a show! If you're feeling slightly down, stick Ted Lasso on. The man will make.
I rewatched it a second time with my wife. To get her into it, because obviously I know season 2's coming up in July.
Yeah,
and I laughed the whole way through. I just love it.
Yeah, it's a great show. It's such a heartwarming show without being sickly. It's fantastic.
It's funny as well, man.
It's properly funny. Yeah. So I think Mythic Quest. Yeah, its second season's coming out. And they're weekly as well. It's another great thing about Apple TV. They drop the shows weekly, which is every respectable streaming channel should do. Netflix, sort your life out.
I've heard some of the early reviews coming from Mythic Quest are season 2's just as good, if not better than season 1.
Didn't it get 10 out of 10 on? But why though?
Did it? I know it got a good review. I didn't see the actual final.
I think it did.
I know Kate was the one that reviewed it, and she loved it.
I think it did. I think it did. So that's fantastic. Hopefully it lives up to that. Yeah. So if you haven't seen, I mean, there was like I think there's 8 episodes, and then there was like this 9th episode that they made, which was like an online. It was like a Zoom.
Yeah, I haven't seen that one. That's the only one I haven't seen.
So there's like a Zoom episode, and then they made another episode recently. So yeah, so it's definitely worth checking out.
I was going to say the only other thing is the assistant. All of the assistants. What's her name? Joy. She's just mad.
Nuts. Absolutely crackpot character. She's fantastic though.
So good.
Yeah. Well, I off your recommendations last week, I went and watched Invincible. I watched it in a couple of days. Funny enough, talking about shows that come out weekly. This did come out weekly, but I absolutely binged it in a couple of days. What a great show! What a story! What a play on the tropes!
It's surprising, isn't it? Because you see it and you're like, it's an animated thing, and you're like, alright. Because I know I saw a couple of trailers and it's like, oh, it looks pretty good, but I wasn't putting a massive amount of stock into it. But as I watched it and got more into it, I was like, holy crap, this is really, really good. Like you said, just kind of refreshing on some of the superhero tropes, and the ending. Whew.
Yeah, the end of the first episode is just incredible.
Jesus, you don't see that one coming.
And then as it moves along, the voice talent in it is amazing, absolutely amazing. That some of the actors who are in it, yeah. And as it moves along, it's just fantastic, and it's just a really, really good story, and shows what you can do with good writing. Animation is The animation is really, really solid, and it just shows you, and it is a really good show, and they've obviously been signed up for a second and third season now, and yeah, it just shows you what you can do. And funny enough, it's a comic that I think started in 2002, I think, and finished in 2017, so it's all there. Although there have been changes made to it, but fantastic show, really, really enjoyed it.
I was going to say, it definitely seems there's a lot more stories to tell. I mean, given the fact that we are getting another 2 seasons.
Even at the end of it, I mean, without ruining it, at the end of it, they basically set up about 6 different stories in it at the end, because each episode is sort of like, doesn't have a villain of the week or anything. It just has these different threads that they have to pull on, and at the end you see that could easily be six big stories. So whether they all pay off in one go, I don't know, but absolutely brilliant. So really enjoyed that. A show I've been hyping up for the last few weeks, Line of Duty. It had its finale this week, and let's just it went in the great tradition of TV shows by being pretty much a big letdown.
Didn't stick the landing from what I'm hearing.
No, it didn't. I mean, because it basically, without spoiling anything, it basically chose, and this I don't see. People didn't like it, but I felt like I was like, wasn't devastated by it. By the ending, it was a bit like what, but it was also one of those things where you go, well, this whole show's been rooted in reality. It is rooted in reality, and the reality is that would probably be the ending in reality. Yeah. It would be the thing that everyone would go, no, don't be silly. Not in like a, oh no, it can't be him. Like it was, or can't be that person, or can't be her. Or, yeah, it was like, that's so stupid that it's probably really realistic, because that's how the world works. Do you know what I mean? I think a lot of people were let down by it because it didn't have this big grand ending, like a Breaking Bad or something. Yeah. It just had an ending where everyone was like, it was that guy? Really?
I was going to say, and so is this the big H reveal then? Was this a series finale or just a season finale?
It's a season finale, but there are no plans for a season 7.
Okay.
But what I would say is, and this is something I sort of lost in the whole thing, is that it wasn't about finding like this big bad, like the big overarching villain. I think what was sort of revealed without giving anything away was there was never really a big villain. There was just people. There was just a person replacing another person. And I think what has been lost is that in previous seasons, people have been caught doing something, police corruption essentially. Yeah. And for about the last 2 seasons, they've been talking about this H, this fourth man. But they were making it out like he was Kingpin. He was behind it all. But if you watch it properly, the person is not like a Kingpin. The person is just somebody who's picking up the slack of the last person, and the last person was a nobody, and the person before him was a nobody, and the person before him was a nobody. Do you know what I mean? It was like
it sounds like Princess Bride with the Dread Pirate Roberts.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good way of saying it, but it is a bit like it is a bit like that. It's like the criminal underworld demands there to be somebody within the police who is giving them tip-offs and helping them do what they do. And I think that was lost. It was like this. I think people started thinking that this H was somehow, as I said, like some kind of kingpin, and I don't think he ever was. I think he was just a guy who made money by tipping them off. But also, once you're in bed with these people, how can you ever get away from them? Do you know what I mean? Once that you can't say no, and once you're in, you're in. Do you know what I mean? It's like one of those things, and the only way out really is if you get caught or you're killed or something. So I think people lost sight of that. I think everyone was looking for this huge grand conspiracy that was never there. There has been stuff in previous seasons where there has been like big conspiracies, which is separate to what this was, and then that's what people lost sight of, and I think that's what led to the disappointment. Now
it's hard sometimes with stories like this, because I mean we've seen it in One Division, Falcon and the Winter Soldier. I think storytellers have a very clear idea in mind, and they almost have to try and forecast okay, this is where we'll get the audience. But once you put it out, it stops becoming yours as a writer and becomes the audience's, and you can't predict how the audience is going to see it and take it. And then you've got YouTube videos breaking down each episode of the week, looking for little clues, and all of a sudden you've got, One Division, perfect example. You've got I've got a friend who's an engineer. We all go crazy and think it's Reed Richards, and they're like, whoa, it was just an engineer.
And that was the problem. It could never live up to the pressure people were putting on it. But I think the guy who writes it was just like, this is what it always was. You took it to that next level. You built it up. I never built it up. I just made a really good show. And I think that's what sometimes happens. People do run away. It is a really good show, and this ending didn't let me down in terms of I was just like, that guy really. But it was like, well, it might have been that guy, because actually that guy is a corruptible guy. So why wouldn't it be him? He doesn't have to be a genius. He just has to be. He just has to play his role. So, and that was it. It was just that. So a lot of people were very, very disappointed by it, but I understood it. Now it'll be interesting to see where it goes, because if it comes back, which it could easily come back in maybe 2 years' time, they're gonna have to sort of start afresh and just have a internal story. Now, do you do that? Can you go back and start a story from scratch, which has got nothing to do, because there's other stories in the 7th season. Do you know what I mean? It'd have to be a one and done, or maybe it's because this has been built up over 6 seasons. That's why people loved it.
I was going to say, and has it been the same showrunner that's kind of taken it over these last
no, same
6 seasons?
Same guy wrote it, and Jed Mercurio, his name is. He wrote it. He's done the whole thing. It's been his from day one, and characters come back, and so very I think
that's the curious thing. Maybe it was
no,
I'm done after season 6, so I'm kind of finishing my arc. But it's not to say the show is done.
No, I don't think the show will come back if he's not doing it. It is
gotcha. Okay,
it is I don't think it could survive without him. Do you know what I mean? It'd have to be him, and it'd have to be all the actors involved. It's not one of those shows where you could bring in a new cast and it could survive just on its name. It has to be the people involved. So watched that, and also watched the new Michael B. Jordan movie Without Remorse, which good, real good, solid streaming movie. Opens the door for so many things. It's within the I'm trying to think of his name, and I've just lost his name. Tom Clancy's world.
Tom Clancy.
They already have. They must have purchased all of the back catalog, mustn't they? So they've already got Jack Ryan. You haven't seen Jack Ryan, have you?
No, I've got it queued up. I am going to go through and watch season 1 and season 2.
What's interesting about Jack Ryan is I've watched both seasons of Jack Ryan. It's a really good show. It's the beginnings of him. And what's good about it is I've watched, until recently, I hadn't seen In Clear and Present Danger. And there is a storyline in the 2nd season of Jack Ryan, which is basically the same storyline as Clear and Present Danger. It's just done, because obviously it's coming from his books and stuff. And there's a character in this Without Remorse who is in Clear and Present Danger. In fact, he was in Some of All Fears as well. Lee Striver played him, and William Dafoe played him in Clear and Present Danger, and he's in this. And it'll be just interesting to see which they play it, whether they say it's in the same world, or whether they say it's a separate world, because it'd be really interesting whether they decide that it's one big world. I mean, maybe they say it might complicate things if they do that, but
I was going to say it'd be curious as well, because it depends on where John Krasinski's going next. Because obviously he's getting really into his directing, and he's been doing, Quiet Place 2. Yeah. Rumors he's been taken up with Marvel. He's had conversations with them, but no one's quite sure. Have to wait and see, because unless you're recast Jack Ryan,
no, I think they will have signed them up for a few seasons. If I'm honest,
yeah,
I think they'll have signed them up. But no, it doesn't. It doesn't. Think about it. Jack Ryan doesn't have to be in it. It can just be set in the same world, and I just find that interesting that they could be. I mean, I think that's really interesting that they set up a Tom Clancy world, and there's certain references in them. The way he kept on saying I've had to go Ghost, and instantly Ghost Recon, because obviously the games. There's something at the end in the credits, which is a fantastic mic drop moment. Big big name drop. And it's the action's really good. Michael B. Jordan's fantastic, and it's definitely worth watching, because it's got a really good idea. It does actually have a trope from Sum of All Fears as well. So you're getting that little. It's not a blatant one. It's not throwing it in your face. It doesn't feel exactly the same. That's what I'm saying. In Jack Ryan, you had a similar plot to Clear and Present Danger, but it never felt the same. It just felt like it was taken from the same story, but it was done differently. And this is the same as well. I feel like this was done a little bit like Sum of All Fears, but just differently. The way they did it. So, yeah. I
was to say, I don't. If anyone's gonna go watch it after this recommendation, I recommend watching it in a very, very dark room, because the whole movie is really dark tone. I know a couple of people have had, so they've had issues trying to watch it. If you try and watch it when it's too light outside,
it is very dark.
It's all set colored dark.
It's all set at night.
Yeah,
it's literally completely set at night. So
yeah, there's some parts of it's almost like jet black, like not like natural light.
Get your settings on your TV right. That's what I'd say. Like you can have a little play with them. I'd get it right so you can brighten it up a little bit, just so you can see people hiding in the shadows with boot polish on the face, and it was really, really, really good. Right,
like you said, though, solid streaming.
Yeah, it's good, really, really good. Yeah, so let's hit the news.
I was gonna say, did you watch Falcon and Winter Soldier documentary?
I did. It was just pretty average, to say the least. Yeah, I did watch it. It was It was certain things enjoyable. I always enjoy listening to Anthony Mackie and Sebastian Stan, but it wasn't anything mind blowing. No. Let's hit the news then. So obviously there's been a few bits and pieces this week. Let's get into it.
Well, jump in first with obviously Tuesday was May the 4th. Be with you, Star Wars Day. First episode of Bad Batch.
Yeah.
And a couple of other Star Wars things actually dropped on Disney Plus as well.
Yeah. There's a couple of. Well, I haven't watched the vehicles one yet, but I watched the Star Wars. What was it called? Biomes, yeah. So basically, this is like an 18-minute Star Wars ASMR. It's like a flyover of
really is.
The places they visit in Star Wars, and it was so chilled out and peaceful. So it's just like the natural sounds. So I think you go like to Hoth and you see the walkers, and you go to Crate and you see like the walkers in that, but you just see the tracks that they've left behind, and you go to Vader's castle, and you just listen.
Mustafar,
you're just basically skimming the outside of it and seeing it all in dead slow motion and getting the sounds, and it's such...
No, I was like Tatooine was really nice because you kind of like it's almost like you like drone footage of going over the sand dunes, and
you see
C-3PO and R2-D2.
And just after
see the Crate Dragon.
Yeah, just after they've got out the pod and stuff, and it's on just 18 minutes of just this chilled out flyby. I mean, stick that on a loop.
More of that, please, Star
Stick
Wars.
that on
Let's
a loop.
visit all the planets.
Yeah. And there was another one for the vehicles as well, which I haven't watched. It was like a vehicle fly through as well. So something.
I was gonna say, and there was a Simpsons short as well.
There was. I watched that as well. Yeah, just nice little crossover, and
yeah, it's funny.
So obviously we got the Bad Batch, which was it was excellent. It was really, really good. Yeah. Again, give us another. It started with giving us those moments coming into Order 66, and we got a little cameo, and then it was just it was an hour. What was it, an hour and 10 minutes, something like that. And it
70 minutes in total, almost like a mini movie.
And it's just set up the show so well of like showing you, and again another angle of Order 66, which is always nice. No, and then just going through it and seeing the beginning of the Empire through someone else's eyes, and I thought that was really good as well, because it's something that recently that I think has been really, really wanted by the fans. Was obviously we've had Clone Wars, Rebels, and now we've got this, and we've had the Mandalorian. And we're going to get more, obviously. Ahsoka, Boba Fett. But there is definitely a story to be told of what happened, between the end of Revenge of the Sith and the beginning of Star Wars. There's definitely a big story to be told. And it's nice now that we're going to see this through the eyes of, Bad Batch. We've had Clone Wars. We know what happened to Ahsoka, and it's just really nice to see that time, because this was like, isn't it mad that when like Lucas, had all the time in the world to do stuff, and I know when we got to the prequels, obviously he got into the Clone Wars and stuff, which was great, handed over to Dave Filoni, but there's these really big periods of time that just aren't dealt with. Like, how does the Emperor get from where he is at the end of Sith to where he is at the beginning of Star Wars? These little things, and this, we've now got a chance to explore it, and I think that's what's great about these shows, is you're just seeing things through fresh eyes, and that's another thing as well. You're continuing the story, but through somebody else's eyes. You're not getting to get, the story of the clones at the end of Clone Wars and Ahsoka, their story for that part was told and done, and then obviously they move into Rebels, and we'll get more Ahsoka. We've had more Ahsoka and Mandalorian. We're going to get more from here, but it's just nice to see it through someone else's eyes.
I think some of it is difficult as well, because like when Lucas was like at the helm compared to now, like the medium of storytelling obviously has shifted and changed. Like a lot of what was done with Star Wars was books. I mean, with Astro here, he'd tell us about his Star Wars book collection and everything that spans as far as the story. So there's so much of that. And then there was the video games and everything. And now that obviously that's all considered legends. So you've got a bit more space now to go back and like, okay, well, how do we want to build that out? And obviously Disney doesn't want to just do books. They don't mind doing it, but really they want to pad out like, oh, we can put a couple of extra animations on. We can do live action now, like really like fill out, because that's their big prized pony at the end of the day.
Yeah, it's interesting as well that they have changed the canon from the beginning of this. I know something we were talking about privately with Astro is that they have changed the canon. The comic book showed something that we see at the beginning of the show, and the comic book one of the comic books shows it differently, and the comic book was canon. Yeah. So it's interesting they have been prepared to change that canon, which, as I said the other day, it's from a certain perspective, isn't it? At the end of the day, you know what I mean? It's from they've changed the canon, but it's more people are going to see that and are probably going to be happy with that than the other version of it. David Gibson says Bad Batch was a lot better than I thought it would be. Didn't expect it to start with from Order 66.
Chills.
Really, no, I didn't.
It was a good choice of doing that.
I think the Order 66 always like excites the fans, because again that was so when you think about how that happened in Attack of the Clones, it happened so fast. We never got to dwell on that. We just got this very quick montage of Jedi's being killed by the clones.
And it was really, I thought it was a really effective point by using Clone Force 99, like seeing it through their eyes, given they are clones, and watching their brothers suddenly turn, and like having that their perspective, like what's going on, like why are you guys doing this kind of thing. So it just felt really poignant, and it hit so much harder.
Hayden says, haven't watched Bad Batch yet, but that's first up tomorrow night. Would love to know your thoughts on where you think The Mandalorian season 3 is going. Well, yeah, I mean, you're going to have 2 episodes because you're going to have the full length version, and you're going to have the episode 2 to watch as well. So I mean, Mandalorian 3, I've got no idea, but I think it might end up...
It's left well open.
It might go to Mandalore, I probably would imagine.
I was going to say, you've got to deal with that whole black lightsaber and the dark saber, and
and the who's got ownership and all that kind of thing. No, it was brilliant, and as I said, there was a nice, without going into it, I don't want to ruin it for people, but there's a nice little... I wouldn't say it was a twist, but there was a nice little element in the narrative about the people themselves, and obviously the Bad Batch, they are clones, and the idea of that they didn't execute all the 66 because obviously they've got faulty chips, and it's just that whole idea of how they deal with it, and like you just said, how do they deal with other clones, seeing the other clones doing what they're doing, and because there's obviously already a clear issue between normal clones and these special clones.
Well, I was going to say, and you've got the added element you see in this episode, and again, without going too much into it, of are clones the right tool for the Empire, like moving forward? Because obviously we got Grand Moff Tarkin coming in, questioning.
We know they're not. So, we know they're not. So that's not
no spoiler.
That's not a spoiler. We know they're not. We know that they move away.
But again, it's something that's never addressed. It was like, okay, you had clones, and then you get to like,
well, it's because of
Rogue One, A New Hope, and there's no clones. So you kind of like, what happened in between?
Yeah. Well, I think a lot of that comes down to because of their shelf life and how long they live, and also,
well, it's also, I think they call it up in this episode, like those decision-making skills.
But also though,
they kind of follow it.
You can control a galaxy and its people more if people live in fear of having their kids taken away from them, like we saw with Finn.
Brainwashed.
Taken away, brainwashed, and becoming soldiers for the Empire. So that's also a way of controlling the people. So I'm sure that came into the thinking. But yeah, was it 17, 18 episodes, is it?
16, I think. It's the longest season than I expected.
Yeah. So we're getting a lot of bang for our buck. It's and they are good characters. And we got a new character in there as well, which is going to be interesting to see how that plays out. It's going to be interesting as well to see
16 episodes.
It's going to be interesting as well to see, like, the cameo situation. Who comes into it. I know already in episode 2 they're going to see somebody, and I haven't delved into that. I haven't even thought about it. I've got a couple of ideas, but I don't really want to go into it because I do want it to be a surprise. So looking forward to see who crosses over with this show as well. There's a few candidates out there, so excellent show. So
do you know what? One thing I did really, really like was the intro. How the Star Wars has that like new intro now. It's almost like the Marvel, like the flip through the comics. Like Star Wars has now got this like flipping through like the silhouettes, but it was all from the animated show, and I was like, oh, that's a nice touch, because it wasn't like when the Mandalorian goes in for its intro, it's like more live action. And then that like title card where it came up as like the Clone Wars, and then it just like burned away. Oh, so good. I love little details like that, and Dave Filoni's notorious for it.
Yeah. obviously quite a bit of Marvel news this week, isn't there? So let's get into that.
So much Marvel news. All right. So one thing that came out before we got into anything big was we got our first look at the behind the scenes of Kamala Khan in her Miss Marvel suit, which looked really good. Expect nothing less from a Marvel comic reveal, but that's up on our Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook if you want to go look for that. Really good. Then unexpectedly on, I think it was Monday, we got Marvel Celebrates going back to the movies. And this was a real good punch. I have to admit, I got emotional listening to Stanley.
Yeah.
It's just delivering one of those speeches where you just like, it kind of renews your faith in humanity kind of thing. And just paired really, really well with some great images from like Marvel movies, and basically saying, the undertone of the message is like, we're excited to go back to the movies, to show you our movies, and to have everyone in the screen. And then they kind of followed up with this camera footage of someone sitting in the cinema watching Avengers Endgame, just as the bit where Cap hears Sam call "on your left," and then people start coming through, and he calls Avengers Assemble, and the American crowd just goes nuts and loses it, and it still gives me chills watching that scene. I love it. And then it's kind of like, we can't wait to look forward to the future. We saw Black Widow, we saw Shang-Chi, and then we saw Eternals.
Yeah, we got a first glimpse of Eternals, which didn't really. Like Hennessy 95 has said thoughts on the Eternals. He's calling them the Externals. It's definitely the Eternals. Yeah, we got our first little look at it, and you got to see the characters, and it's really hard to decipher, isn't it, what's happening in it? But I
love it. I've read so many Eternals comics.
Everyone looks.
They're such a good story to be told there.
Yeah, it's gonna be it's gonna be really interesting. Just off the top of the top, it's gonna be really interesting to just find out why these people weren't involved in everything that's already happened. Where have they been? Did they have their mind wiped or whatever? So that's a really good, interesting point in all the history of what's going on.
Well, yeah, they're super powerful beings, and one thing that has kind of been lost in some of the breakdown videos is just like their actual origins is, they are human. They've just been like experimented on by just the Celestials. So the lore that's going to go on here, like this movie, I mean, it potentially, like from what I've heard, it's opening up like deviants, which Thanos is kind of like in that deviant race. You've got Eternals, humanity. You've got to have at some point some introduction more with the Celestials and their part in the cosmic galaxy, and it's got a lot of little beats it's got to hit. So, and it looks like based on this trailer that they're in like ancient Babylon or something like this, and so you're dealing a lot with different parts,
and
of
it's in modern days because you see a clip where there's a cameraman following them, which looks like,
I think that's Kingo. I think he's like a Bollywood star. That's how he blends into humanity. There's so many weird things with the Eternals going on. It's such a rich history, and there's so much they can do with it. So I'm kind of excited to see where they lead with it, and what's the potential future for some of those characters as well.
Yeah, it's gonna be a lot of characters that people aren't familiar with, and it's an origin film. It has to get straight into it, but and it's a nice mix of the space stuff that we've already seen, Thor, Guardians, but and the air stuff as well. Probably Thanos will be involved as well.
Because you've got with the Eternals, you've got Earth-based Eternals, and then there was a group of Eternals that left and went to live on Titan, and that's where you get that little clip from Infinity War with Thanos as well.
Yeah. No, look, I mean, for 13 seconds, it's amazing what you can do with 13 seconds, isn't it? You cut something really, really quickly. But
Kumail Nanjiani, by the way, see his guns,
man,
sitting there it's good.
He's worked hard for that, hasn't he?
Coming to the gun show. dear.
That's all you needed to know. No, it does. It's nice because I like that. I think it's good that Marvel throw them in. I know this one we've got a lot of sequels coming up, and we really can't wait for those sequels. But it's good to just throw something into the mix where you're like, oh, this is something new, but it's also really big as well. It's like this is like the old Avengers. Like this is like this team was already here, and it's got something. It's very cosmic and looking forward.
They're very long-lived, and a lot of like the way they kind of play it is a lot of Earth's myths, like legends and myths, are like based on these characters, just because they've lived through time. Because they can be killed, but they get resurrected. They're not like I'm trying to think of the word. They don't die, they don't age, but like they can be killed. They just get resurrected in this machine that's tied to the planet and stuff like that. So it'd be a crazy one. Very good.
So we got that, and then obviously we got the reveals for Captain Marvel 2 is called The Marvels, and within the imagery is the S is with the S from Miss Marvel, and within the A is the logo for Photon,
which is Monica Rambeau,
which obviously we got introduced in WandaVision. So straight away we're going to have 3 superheroes in one film, which is which I'm sure the fanboys will be absolutely made up about that. 3 female characters in one film. They're going to love it. Yep. Brie Larson can share the hate. But that's good. That's good off the back, because just by changing the title straight away, you are, and by the imagery, you are showing everyone that, it's not just going to be Captain Marvel coming down to Earth to do some. There's going to be more to it, and obviously there's going to be some kind of fallout. Obviously, what we saw from Monica Rambeau
that's going to be addressed
with her mum. So that's good. And also we got the title for Black Panther 2, which is Wakanda Forever, and I feel like that is definitely
that hit me.
That's definitely a nod, isn't it? It's definitely a nod to Chadwick Boseman. Straight off the bat, that's definitely a nod to him straight off the bat, saying like, Black Panthers don't live forever, but Wakanda does.
Your legacy's gonna live on.
Yeah.
No, that hit me when I saw that one. Because I wasn't expecting it, because they were going through. I think after Eternals, we got like Doctor Strange, Multiverse of Madness, like Thor, Love and Thunder, and you're like, oh, okay, yeah, we've seen these, and then all of a sudden it was like Black Panther, Wakanda Forever, and I was just like, ooh, it's like it just has that like big instant impact, and it was a good name choice. I mean, you look at it now and you're like, okay, yeah, it had to be, but we've all been kind of waiting to see what they do with it. So, and I think it was like a week ago. I think Lupita Nyong'o came out and saying, she's touched base with the director from Black Panther and Ryan Coogler, and they've said that the story they're going ahead with is going to do him really, Chadwick Boseman a lot of justice, and it's going to be a really good story, and it's going to work, and not undermine what they originally set out to do. So
there are comics without that version of Black Panther in it. So there's definitely they have, this is something where they've been before. It's just going to be hard, and it's going to be interesting to see at the same time what they do. But it's quite interesting as well. What I do like also is though that you get Ant-Man as well, Quantumania, and it is good that a lot of these films are not just being called Black Panther 2 and Captain Marvel 2 and Ant-Man 3. They're all getting their like little individual titles, and I really like that, because it stands out more as a
gives it more character.
Well, also I think what has been very noticeable in recently is Marvel, I think, again, a lot more comfortable, and their suits and everything are becoming really spot on. You're seeing Wanda's suit, costume. You're seeing Bucky's, not Bucky. You're seeing Sam's new Captain America costume, and they're all really on the nose, and I think they're just being very comfortable now, not having any issues with being like, this is what it looks like. Of course, it's going to be slightly And I know they haven't. It's not something they've ever suffered from. It's not like an X-Men kind of thing where they're just wearing like black leather coats and stuff. But it does feel like they're getting really comfortable, and the names of the names of the movies. Not calling something the Marvels isn't. Do you know what I mean? It's basically saying, well, you know, this is a Captain Marvel film. What are you? Do you know what I mean? It's like calling something Wakanda Forever. It's like everyone knows where Wakanda is now. Do you know what I mean? You know, you go back 2-3 years ago. No, you know, if you said Wakanda to people in the street, they would have been like, I don't know, is that by Chad or something? And now everybody knows what Wakanda is. So they've
I mean, so much so, like in black culture, it's kind of been owned as a thing. Like you've got people come up on like, you know, the BET Awards, like giving up like the Wakanda Forever sign. Like, so it's been amazing to see the impact it's made on pop culture.
Wakanda's become, dare I say, like the Holy Land in a way. Do you know what I mean?
This idea of
what life could be, and that's amazing that's come from a Marvel, you know, from like almost like this is what we could have if we'd been given the privilege of what you've been given, and I think that's really interesting. So we obviously
I like what you said about the names though, because even you see it with like Ant-Man. You know, we've got Ant-Man, then Ant-Man and a Wasp, now Ant-Man and a Wasp Quantumania.
See, that sounds like a ride in Disneyland.
Really silly. Yeah.
It sounds like a ride in Disneyland, doesn't it? It doesn't sound like a film, but it does sound. But it fits into Ant-Man. That's what I love about it. Like Ant-Man, we had Ant-Man and Ant-Man 2. But Ant-Man Quantumania is like, because what I really like about that is, it's like there's been this thing for years about like, you know, I know we got like Captain America, Winter Soldier, and Captain, you know, Civil War. So it's not it's not nothing new. But I do like the idea of going, no. We're not just gonna go 1, 2, 3, 4, and people be like, "Oh, there's another one, another one." It's like you're telling people straight away, this is gonna be a different thing. This is gonna be a different journey. Straight away, you know, you're giving clues away to what the plot is or what comic it came from, and those kind of things. And I think that's really.
I think you could compare it to like Iron Man, because Iron Man was kind of quick off the bat, wasn't it? Iron Man 1, Iron Man 2. You got Iron Man 3. Like didn't really again give anything off. It was just this continuation of the same character with just some little changes, where now some of these characters are kind of being given like, okay, once you give that plot away, it's like, okay, this isn't just going to be Captain America, it's going to be something else entirely. So it's exciting. Marvel's they're getting really comfortable, and you know, I said something in the Discord this week, like it really hit me with these Disney Plus shows and what they're doing in the cinema. Like Marvel's timeline for everything now is just suddenly like expanding so quickly. Like the universe is getting so big
with the TV shows, and I mean that was basically said this week as well, wasn't it? Every film's going to have a show going into it now as well, in one form or another. So that's really exciting as well. But of course, just the irony is we did get Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. So and we got a date confirmed for that as well. That's good. I mean, we got the dates, they've all been nailed down, so that's really positive. And everything's back on track now. That's the best thing, is that we do now have everything on track. You know, Black Widow will be the only one that goes out on Disney Plus at the same time it goes in the cinema.
I feel really bad for Black Widow. It suffered because of like it was the next one to come out with the pandemic. It just it was unfortunate.
But the thing about it is, though, I think a lot of people will be really excited to see that in the cinema. So I think it'll get a cinema bump. I think beforehand it would have been like people would be like, "Oh man, I don't know, you know, maybe a bit of fatigue,
felt like a little too close."
Bit of superhero fatigue. Now it'd be like, I want to see that. I really want to see it. You know, it's time. You know, it's time to go back to the movies. So I think it's gonna get it, and I think more people will want to go to the cinema. I know we've all been conditioned, of course, to stay at home, but I want to go out. I want to go to the cinema. I want to get back into the habit.
Especially watching a Marvel film just on that big screen with the sound and the music and. The feel of it, like sitting around with everyone else, that anticipation.
Box of popcorn, and you know, and all the everything, you know, getting overcharged for a scoop of ice cream and all the rest of it. They got to make the money somehow, haven't they? You know.
No, I was gonna say, what did you make of like the very end of the video where they kind of finished with the Fantastic Four? Because there's been a bit of talk about it this week. Like, was that symbolic? Like, here's Phase 4. Do you think Fantastic Four is gonna finish out Phase 4? Like it's a TBA.
I'll be honest, I didn't really think about it that deep. I was just thinking there's going to be a Fantastic Four. and there isn't a date for it yet. Like they don't want to give the date away because the minute you give date away, it puts pressure on you. So it's just like it was just them confirming.
Yeah.
That
because they already have the director lined up. It's John Watts, isn't it?
Yeah, it's the guy from Spider-Man.
Yeah.
So I didn't think of anything. I just thought, well, again, they're just telling everyone that there's going to be a Fantastic Four, and that's it. So I'm looking forward to it. They haven't confirmed anyone for that yet. So, no, it's all just dead exciting. We're getting it back. We're getting it all back.
Martin Wiggins, I was going to say, he just asked, have we heard the Marvel audio dramas? He said they're really quite good.
Wolverine. The Wolverine podcast. We both listened to that and we both loved it.
Absolutely loved it. I also listened to the Fantastic Four one they did as well, which was very good. Very different to the Wolverine podcast, but really good.
Mitchell Bolson says, can't wait for the smell of the cinema when I go back. Yeah, there is a particular smell. It smells of popcorn stuck to the floor.
Getting your feet stuck to the carpet, like.
No, I love going to the cinema. I love it. Yeah. It's like my thing. You know, football's dead to me. It's properly dead to me. It's just like it's about as entertaining as having the nurse go over your head.
Do you know what's silly? When I go to the cinema, I love trailers.
Yeah, I love trailers. I love getting even if I've seen them 80 million times, I'm like,
exactly. That's my point. We post the trailers. Yeah. We're constantly watching for trailers online. But yet, still, when I go to the cinema, I'm like, oh, what trailers are going to show?
Something different about seeing.
I just nudging my wife,
But there is something different about seeing a trailer on the big screen and it being but also there's that disappointment when you're like, there's been a newer trailer since that one came out. It's like, wow, this one came out months ago. Was the new one featuring, Howard the Duck?
You're telling everyone around you, listen, go to our site and check out the new.
I don't
trailer.
Speak to people at the cinema at all. No. No, I can't wait. We had Loki news as well. This is really interesting. So we had a special look on the NBA halftime show. Okay. I don't know if
you've done better accents than that, Ped.
Fucking 3:15 in the morning.
There's no excuse. If you're gonna go in.
God damn it! We've got a Loki trailer coming straight at you from the people at Marvel, our best friends. Wasn't very good either.
That's better.
But it was at like halftime in like the Marvel. Did you see any of this NBA show?
I didn't. I caught little clips and videos and stuff like that, but no, I didn't.
So they had like this Marvel like NBA game where like Iron Man was just like flying around and sitting in different places. I mean, obviously it was all computer generated, and then these like it was all Marvel superhero themed. There's all kinds going on. It was all a bit tacky, but just because they had a thing with Loki, so there was like a minute. I don't know if people. Have they brought this out yet? Has this been officially released?
What the
Loki clip?
The sneak peek? Yeah.
Okay. So it wasn't though, was it, for like 24 hours?
Yeah, there was almost like 24, 30 hours. It just wasn't out, and I was because we pulled it from somewhere, but
it dropped in our lap.
It did come out officially, but there was quite the delay in it.
It just gave us a little bit more info, a little bit more story arc, kind of telling us what was going on. But we also got the reveal of this show is going to go out on a Wednesday rather than on a Friday, so it's going to preview on the 9th of June, which is my wedding anniversary, funny enough. And and it's going to be on Wednesday, and it's an interesting one. That it's just I'm just wonder why. Obviously the Bad Batch will still be on, and obviously the show will still be on when Black Widow comes out as well. So I just wonder whether they are. I don't know. I don't know whether they're saying Wednesdays are going to not like Tuesday's comic book day.
Yeah,
maybe they're going to be like
Wednesday
or so maybe they're going to go like Wednesday is Marvel Day. I don't know. I don't know if that suits everyone. I think everyone likes the idea of things being out on a Friday, so they can come home from work, relax, kick off the shoe. I mean, I say that come home, they're in the back room. Let's get it right, or in the box room. But Friday night.
Working from home.
So I don't know whether Wednesdays will work for everyone, but it'd be interesting to see whether this is like the test one, because I think they know that everyone wants to watch Loki. So it's like it doesn't matter when it's on, people will watch Loki. So because when you look,
that's the thing as well. Like at some point here, moving forward, like the motivation or the momentum moving forward for Disney, at some point they're going to have Star Wars and Marvel projects on at the same time.
That was what I was just about to say. Then when you look at the slate for the shows, and especially because things have been condensed, because they've basically essentially lost probably 8-9 months. There's a lot of shows condensed, and maybe they're just like, why are we? Because I think Netflix used to be on a Friday, but now things come out on Netflix all the time. I've noticed.
Yeah.
Like, and I know Amazon Prime still, that's pretty much Fridays for their shows. But maybe they just decided, like, why are we getting stuck on this one day? Let's stick it out on another day, and see what happens. So
I was going to say, it's funny because, like, if you look at the cable model, if a show got moved to Friday, it's usually where it went to die.
Yeah.
Like, it got low viewership. People just didn't watch as much on a Friday, so they just stick it there, and like, we want to make space for something else.
Isn't Thursday?
Usually
Isn't it Thursday the peak day in America?
Thursday. Sometimes Mondays are usually good. Mondays are like, Tuesday, Wednesday is a bit iffy, but Thursdays and I think Mondays are usually like top spot. I mean, you look at HBO. HBO usually does Sundays.
Yeah, that was
with some of their prime time stuff. Yeah. So like, I don't think there's any hard and fast rule with what they have to do.
You have to educate the audience. You have to be like if they turn around and go, Wednesdays is going to be Marvel Day, people will go, well, Wednesdays is Marvel Day. It was just that they brought it in,
just promote it and just sell it.
Yeah, it's just because they brought it, at the end of the day, they brought it in, the idea that Friday was going to be the day. So all you got to do is re-educate the audience, say, no, Marvel is Wednesdays is now Marvel Day. Simple as that. There you go. So I mean, obviously, really looking forward to Loki, and obviously that's our next Marvel show. Any other news to chat about?
I think that was everything to do with Marvel for the week. So that was kind of a lot. There was 2 new kind of trailers this week. There was a Quiet Place Part 2 final trailer that drops May 28th.
That didn't really show anything new, I didn't think.
No, I think it was just more like, hey, you haven't seen anything for a while.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think the only new footage we got was like, you saw a bit more of like these flashbacks from John Krasinski, like as the actual event seems to be unfolding.
Yeah, which is
because that's the thing. In the original, we never got day one.
Didn't have the budget, did they? At the end of the day, that they didn't have the budget, and that's why I'm glad with this one that they're going to go back and show us exactly what happened. Got a bigger budget, and obviously he's like, I want to be in the film. I want to be in it. You can't make this film without me. So yeah. Bigger budget and start getting into it. I just don't want any nails. I can't be doing with the nails, man.
It does seem like this movie picks up like right after the event of the first one. I don't know if you caught. She had that bandage on her foot, doesn't she?
She did. Yeah.
I saw that and I kind of winced and was like,
"Oh, it's horrible." I can cope with like anything in that film. I can cope with the kid getting taken in the first 5 minutes. I can't cope with the nail through the foot. Ooh.
They tease it constantly, and then when it happens, you just like.
David Gibson says, "Is Quiet Place 2 a prequel?" It shows you the flashbacks of how it happened, but it's set. The story does move forward, and obviously, I think they leave the house and go and find somewhere that is. I don't know. Maybe it's one of those things where they hear a rumor that somewhere's populated or something. But certainly they are on the move. They do leave the house. Maybe the house gets compromised or something, or I don't know. But it certainly shows you, the movie will show you how it started, day one, and then it will move forward. So which is good. That's what we want. We want to know how it started and then get an idea of where it's going.
Yeah, I'm excited about it. It's just a really good story, really good premise, and the way it was directed and shot was just so different to anything we'd kind of seen. Like the way they used the tension with just the lack of sound is just
and especially with
so good.
the little girl being deaf as well, just
Yeah.
added it up again. Yeah. And what was the other trailer?
Very, very good. Stranger Things season 4 teaser trailer.
Yeah, there was like a weird countdown clock thing, wasn't there, a couple of days ago? And then there was basically again talking about prequels. So obviously the trailer is set when 11 is in the institute facility, yeah, and when you know Matthew Modine is Papa, and they are starting to do the experiments on them, and obviously
hello children.
She is she's having flashbacks, it seems, of what happened, because obviously we're going into this season and she didn't have her powers at the end of the last one, so maybe it's her just flashing back and remembering how it all happened and stuff, but it's quite interesting, isn't it? Because we were heard recently that the show wouldn't be coming out till 2022, but by having another teaser, and this is the second teaser, and apparently there's going to be 4 teasers, and the last teaser was a while ago and showed Russia. So it'd be interesting to know when the next 2 are out, and actually when the show is coming out, because I don't know I don't know when it's coming out. Quite simply, no one's told me.
I didn't get the memo.
No, so it'd be interesting to know. But it didn't really show us anything. It just. But do you know what? I'd be perfectly okay with no trailers and just these little teasers of just nothing. Yeah. Because I'd love to go in blind, because I can't be trusted with trailers, because I will watch them again and again and again and look for details. So I'd love not to know and just go into the season blind. It'd be fun. But yeah, it's just, and Netflix, it's one of those things, isn't it? Like Stranger Things is the biggest property I have. It's their like big original, exclusive thing. I'm sure they're gonna want to milk it for all it's worth and just get the most promotion out of this. It's their franchise, isn't it? At the end of the day, it's their big pop culture franchise. Yeah, everyone wants one of them.
I was going to say, and leading into season 4, you can't imagine they've got too much long left with this series as well. No, which is sad to think about.
Not with those kids. Those kids are not kids anymore. I actually still, I've got to, I'd be surprised if they didn't not surprised, sorry, that's the wrong word, but you would think that maybe they would almost film both seasons back to back.
Or just get out the way.
Get it done. Those kids are not going to be kids forever, and you leave a gap again, then you unless they age up as they age up in real life, I suppose. But those we introduced to these sweet kids when they first started, and they're going to be proper adults. So.
I was going to say, and they all seem to be really sprouting up.
And it takes them. That just takes the magic away, doesn't it? So a little bit. David Gibson says, "Any idea when season 4 of Cobra Kai is coming out?" I don't know when it's coming out, but I do know that it's wrapped filming.
I believe it's supposed to be coming out at the end of the year, sometime fall to end of year, along with The Witcher season 2, was what I'd read.
Okay.
And that came from one of the big media outlets. So
that come from Dave Netflix himself.
Straight from my email.
Okay, have we got any more news?
Last little snippet of news, nothing massive. The directors from Dungeons and Dragons revealed that they had started filming this week, and that's John Daly and Jonathan Goldstein, who had originally done Spider-Man Homecoming.
Okay.
So kind of interested to see what they're throwing together. I've been actually looking forward to this one since we saw that one car commercial. Fantastic.
Is it based on the cartoon, or is it just a...
I think it's going to be based on the car. I don't know. I guess we'll have to wait and see. It's hard not to imagine that there won't be. So, Game of Thrones, House of the Dragon released character posters.
It did.
For some of their people. So we got some Targaryen people and then some other roles from houses that we don't know yet. So that'll be interesting.
House of Incest.
Oh no, I tripped and fell, sister.
Oh, let's
More
have a
of
game
that.
of hide the dragon. Oh.
Oh dear. Oh dear. And the last little bit of news was Warner Brothers are looking to hire a black director for the next Superman film, which they have confirmed will be a black Kal-El Superman in a more focused period role. So more 60s, 70s. And I think I read something that it won't be Krypton blowing up necessarily. Kal-El just leaves Krypton and comes to Earth.
Just getting off, lad. Boring around here.
Yeah.
Just getting off. Just get on, lad. Just clap.
Yeah.
Clap.
And it's rumored that casting, or I think a lot of fan casting might be as Michael B. Jordan in the role.
Excellent casting, if that is true. Wormy Spoons wants to know, have you watched Raised with Wolves? Honestly, it's the best new show produced by Ridley Scott. You mentioned this last week, didn't you?
Yeah, I found it interesting. It's a different watch. It's a bit more of a slower pace. Really like Travis Fimmel because he's just amazing. But I don't know, like it was an interesting watch, but I don't think it blew me socks off either. You know what I mean? So it was good. I enjoyed it. But
you want to tie those socks down? Don't want anything.
I just shoot across the room. Like,
don't want anything messing with them socks. Yeah, there you go. That's all the week's news. There's quite a lot of news. We're going to talk about For All Mankind now. If you have not watched it and you want to watch it, then you're probably best not listening. This is just really self-indulgent for me and Aaron because we've watched it and we just want to talk about it, really. But honestly, it's a fantastic show and it's definitely worth watching. And if you haven't and you don't want it spoiled, then I would probably advise you stop watching right now. So let's get into it. So For All Mankind, it finished last week. It was the season finale, second season finale. Same day as Falcon and the Winter Soldier, and I must admit, it was, as finales go, it was a much better finale. It was fantastic.
Tensions were high.
Fantastic show. It's moved on beautifully in the two seasons. You know, starting with the space race, obviously, Russia getting to the moon first, and how it all evolved, and obviously we had everything speeding up, you know, the space race continually.
Just everything.
And then in the
social politics, technology and everything.
Yeah, women getting, you know, good jobs and, you know, equal footing and all that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But I thought this season, second season, really heightened the tensions because obviously, I think at first it was a very, you know, it was race to the moon. It was quite playful in terms of what they were doing. It was very tit for tat. But in this one, the Cold War really escalated and the moon really did become the focal point of the Cold War, and I just thought that was excellent.
Yeah, it's at some point you're kind of like watching this tension rise, and it just continues to escalate, and you just really feel like the intensity, like it could go off, because it's not like, you know, Russia just suddenly drops off and, like, you know, becomes underfunded. They seem to keep pace with the US constantly, and then you just see this, like, you know, obviously they start taking weapons to the moon and everything like that, and you're like, none of this is going to end well. Like, it's just, and again, you've got this like battle between science and, you know, essentially like a military standoff, and like even within the camp of the US, you've got the army and, you know, the scientists kind of butting head. Like, this is science. This doesn't matter. Like, no one can own the moon. There's no rights there. And where the military's like, I think you can.
Because obviously there's mining and all kinds. It's just well,
because that's the big thing, isn't it? That, like, if they find more like fuels and different things, they can use the moon
to
as like a base to kind of propel them further out.
And that's it. It's about conquering the galaxy, isn't it? Or conquering the solar system, isn't it?
terraforming.
And also, it's like
essentially,
it's a dick measuring competition as well at the same time, isn't it? Let's be honest, they're both countries, and that's basically what the Cold War was anyway, just here. But it is really, I love the parallels of, you know, of what happens on Earth, you know, what did happen on Earth to what happens in space, and how actually being in space escalates something. You know, mutually assured destruction was what the Cold War was all about, and because you're not on Earth and you don't necessarily have those, because people, it's so weird because they're on the moon but they're coming face to face with each other, whereas on Earth they didn't come face to face with each other. That was such the interesting thing, and because it does become a military thing, and NASA, you know, some of the, you know, they've got satellites in space now. They've got like the real Star Wars, and how they put those real things that happen. I mean, honestly, one of the things that happened in season 2 that really unnerved me was when the Russian fighter jet blew up the 747. That made me shudder, because that's based on a true event that really happened. A Korean 747 strayed into Russian airspace, and the fighter pilot said he thought it was a spy plane, and they basically that was the story, and they blew it up and it had passengers, and it was horrible. And when you're watching that and when you see it happen and how it happens, and the guy's on the phone and he hears the explosion,
because you have like that, you have that key figure who's basically the liaison between NASA and the president, like into an elected position as well. And it was done well, because at the point when it happened, the character's a bit of a dick, but at that point you start to see more of him, and he becomes likable, because he starts making this personal connection with Ellen, who obviously, you know, takes into the role, and you're like, oh man, he does seem like a bit of a nice guy. It's just like the role he has to play, and he tells her, doesn't he, like, I'm not always the same. I'm not the same person I am with you that I am with my wife. I'm not the same person I am with my wife that I am with the president. And like, you start to see more of him, and then boom, and you're just like, gee, you just don't see it happening. You're like, oh my god, man.
It's just the way the fighter plane's just sitting up there, like, waiting for it, and it's horrible. It's just like, ugh. At first, when I was watching, I actually thought it was a deliberate act, because they knew he was on the plane and he was going to Korea.
I thought
about that on first, but then I realised, because I have this weird, I watch a lot of aircraft investigations, which is really weird, but it's a fascinating show. And I remember watching the episode where they blew up the plane, and just that idea of being blown out the sky just is like, I mean,
nothing you can do.
It's just, I mean, quite literally is my worst nightmare. Like, it's horrendous, that idea of, especially because he hears it as well. You see him on the phone hearing it, and it's so it's like he hears it, looks back, and then it's gone, and it's just like, to me, I always think, what would happen in those moments? You know, would the plane come apart and you'd know what was going on, and then you'd lose consciousness, or it's horrible. That is literally my worst nightmare. No, it is. It really, really is. It's.
I was gonna say,
horrible.
So moving forward, what did you make of Gordo's arc for this season?
It was quite interesting, because obviously we got like the return of the conquering old people. So you got Gordo going back to space. You got Edward going back to space. You had
well, I was gonna say, and it starts with Ed being like the director of the space flight program, like the head of the astronauts, which it was kind of interesting to see, given how they ended last season.
You had Deke as well. You had Deke going into space as well. He'd never basically had that chance. So he'd never had that chance. So you had Deke there as well. So you had like 3 older guys, and it was interesting with that, having that crossover. But Gordo's fantastic, because obviously Tracy, his ex-wife, was like she'd become the poster child
for the space race, for the astronaut program.
And she was like, always on like the Tonight Show, and she was like blue-eyed, person for NASA,
and that was always the original intention, like bringing they're in, because they say that in season 1 that they wanted someone that was like basically a pin-up girl that could be able to be an astronaut. But obviously you saw that was the great thing about season 1. Like, you have to have so much more intelligence to go, because there's so much to overcome.
Yeah. Oh yeah,
when you're out there.
Yeah. No, I thought it was really good because I thought what I liked about the whole thing was, certainly from the astronauts' point of view. I know in the first season they sort of, when they brought the women into it, they were a little bit, we shouldn't be doing this,
Yeah.
Sexist point of view, but it did become pretty much like a really big community of astronauts who looked after each other for the most part. And there's little things when Gordo and Ed have the little dogfight, and Ed loses the plane, and obviously the plane's worth probably about $2-3 million.
Yeah,
it's not, and he loses the plane, and it's like he goes in, and you think, oh, he's gonna get taken off the mission, and it's like, no, you get on with it, and it's like, what was that? It's like, well, it's too late. He's our best commander. He can go up. Blah blah blah. I was
gonna say, it's not like you can just grab and pick out anyone to be an astronaut.
But I like the way that
unique breed.
But I like the way that they did all protect each other, and Ed sending, because obviously in the first season with Gordo, the whole thing with Gordo and him basically having a nervous breakdown in space. Cabin.
Hey Bob.
Yeah, well, he got cabin fever, didn't he? Essentially, and everything happened there. But to go back and him having to deal with that, and then Tracy being like his focal point was a really interesting.
Yeah.
Was really, really good. And then obviously the second to last episode was where it really kicked off. Well, first of all we had the Russians being shot, and it was just vile what happens, because the bullet basically just sets fire to the oxygen and burns him alive in his suit. It's just absolutely grim.
When they lift up the visor, and you're like, holy shit.
He's just on fire inside the suit. It's just horrific. And you're like, there's nothing they could have done. Like, even,
See, that's grim for me. Like, where you're talking about the plane, like, you're on the moon. There's nothing you can do, and you're just being burned into...
horrible. Horrible. Absolutely horrible. And then, obviously, so they take the other guy back to try and sort him out. And then, obviously, when you just see that figure outside the window, and it's like, what? He puts a gun, and you're just like, what's he doing out there?
He slowly, raises it, and just,
lifts the gun, shoots the window out, and you're just like, this is nuts. And obviously shoots the window out, the pressure goes, one guy ends up outside, and obviously, and then the Russians invade the base, and it was just what I loved about it was, it was the fact that you had all these stories culminating in the final episode, all these little threads, and they weren't all rushed, they were all worked through properly. You obviously had the Russians and the Americans were supposed to meet.
Was it the Apollo Soyuz?
Yeah, they were supposed to, it was supposed to be like a peaceful mission where they'd been working with each other, and there was going to be the modules supposed to come together in an act of peace. So you had that going on.
Oh Jesus! Even the bit with the design of the spaceships as well, how one, we've got to have a male part and a female part, and you're just like, whoa, we're the male parts.
Yeah,
arguing over silly things like that.
Our name's going to be on it first, and all this thing. And then obviously you had Ed going up in the new shuttle, and he's obviously, because the Russians had blockaded the moon, and they had the Sea Dragon, which was just, again, the Sea Dragon was just frightening. Like, at the end of the first season, when I seen the Sea Dragon come out the water, it was just like, bleh. It was just like, it felt like it was too big. It felt like there was too much going on with that. But obviously that was a refuel, like, it's got a nuclear thing and it's refuel, and that's going up, and they're having to protect that, and then they're going on the dark side of the moon. So you've got this standoff on the moon, you've got Russians in the base, you've got the possibility of a nuclear meltdown on the moon because of the power, and then you've got something about to happen with the blockade, but it's going on the dark side of the moon, and then
I was to say, you've got Molly dealing with getting cataracts and basically going towards getting blind. You've got Ed's wife on the prowl,
with her dead son's best friend, which was again that.
Like,
to be honest,
18.
I think that may have been the only weak point of the whole season was her. It was like they had to give her a story because she had nothing else. Like in the first season, she was a real integral part of it because of the age, because of like her relationship with Tracy and the boys and stuff and stuff. But in the second season, I probably would have just liked to have seen less of her and her not be in it. And
that's the thing as well, because she's a big actress as well. Yeah. So it's kind of like they felt like they had to do something.
I appreciate that, and I think by making it the young lad, it was like it didn't feel. It just felt like an innocent thing rather than like if she'd had an affair with someone else, like who worked at NASA or something.
Yeah.
So that was a bit weird, and you obviously had the daughter as well, who was finding out who her real, because she was adopted, she's Vietnamese. Then you also had the Mexican girl who'd obviously father had been deported, and she came up through NASA. You had all these brilliant little things, and her story was good as well. The Mexican girl's her story was good.
Oh yeah.
So you had all these little things, but I just loved the way it culminated in. Obviously, Gordo and Tracy. What they did was just unbelievable.
Because no one knew as well.
Yeah.
Like you've got everything going on in Jamestown, but like everyone's so focused on the Russians invading, and you've got like the marine astronauts like trying to figure out how to combat them. Where you've got some of the astronauts tucked away, the American astronauts in another section, but meanwhile, only Tracy and Gordo know the fact that like the reactor's been hit, and if they don't switch it over, the whole place is going to go up, and the moon. What is it? The moon's going to become uninhabitable for like 1,000 years, and you're like, Jesus.
But also,
everyone
in the place would have died, wouldn't he? So there was a lot of people there. So, and again, just the idea of American base blowing up on the moon with Russians inside would have started World War III probably on Earth as well. So there was a lot at stake.
Just a bit.
But just seeing that like, you know, Gordo and Tracy just basically saying, this is it. I mean, without ever saying it, because they're astronauts at the end of the day. They have to be. They're just the bravest people. Yeah. They just know that everything they do could kill them. And the fact that they had... Listen, I don't know how far-fetched this scene is. You know, I've
got to imagine there's some thought...
listen...
theoretical science behind it, because everything he seems to have done has been pretty close.
Apparently, I mean, I've seen before that, you know, in Guardians of the Galaxy when Star-Lord takes his mask off. I heard that's quite scientifically that's like, you can, if you held your breath in space, you've probably got about 15 seconds before you freeze essentially. And if you took a breath, there'd be nothing there, but because you're taking a breath, everything would just blow up.
Well, and that was a really interesting bit, because right before they go out, they say you can't have any air in your lungs.
Yeah, because
I was like,
because it would expand within, because it's a vacuum. It would have to find a way out, so it would expand, like, and that's why they like. So obviously they wrap themselves in the tape, and then you see the tape starting to come off, and obviously that's because every part of them is starting to expand because it's a vacuum. The cells in their bodies are expanding essentially, and you know the oxygen in their lungs would be trying to get out. So having the mask on and you have to. I mean, it was a horrible scene, because I just like the fact that they went, I've been jogging, it's okay. But it was like they knew they were going to die, but at the same time they had to do it, but there's still that arrogance that they won't die, because that's what our astronauts, I think, basically are. Like when they say made of the right stuff, it's because they have that arrogance, because if they didn't have that arrogance, they couldn't be
constantly pushing it.
Yeah, they couldn't be like fighter pilots and all that kind of thing, where they go to the edge of space and all that when they were test pilots and all the rest of it. And obviously you start seeing bits of them start to seep out, and they're getting, they're losing. The
worst was you see it in their eyes.
Well, the both of them starting to drop, because obviously they can't breathe at all. And then, but it was good.
Holding my breath at that point. I was like, "Come on!"
But they both got back. I mean, it was good that they both got back. But I do feel like they had to die, because if they didn't die, it would have just been stupid. And that's where where you're willing to say as a viewer, I believe that could be possible, but they've got to die, because I don't believe they could go out into space without any protection, hold their breath, things bursting all over their bodies, and be able to come back and be like, yeah, we're all right. So I think they had to die, and it rounded off.
It also, I was going to say, it also gives it a nice little closed arc, and the fact that, the reason Gordo went up there was to get Tracy back,
and he got
to get his life on track, and he got her back, and they, regardless of how morbid it is, like, they ended up together in each other's arms. It was sweet and somber at the same time. Like, it was just this big sacrifice that they'd made to the rest of Jamestown base to save them, to save the moon in this heroic event. And it wouldn't have been as poignant if they'd survived. Like, that sacrifice should be so much more.
Well, there had to be a hero. Yeah, Wormy Spoon says in space it is close to 207. Is it 200, minus 270 or 0 Kelvin? But it's also a vacuum, so there is nothing to convey the energy. So you do have to, as long as you can hold your breath. Well, there you go. That's sort of. But I do think like it needed a hero, but the hero so everyone could go, that's the price we paid for living. There had to be someone had to pay the price for surviving. And obviously with that, we obviously got Ed as well blowing up the Sea Dragon. We had a big standoff, with his with the one of his crew members, and there's a big standoff. Basically she was just telling him to stand down, and he had the gun and blah blah blah, and they're basically saying that you can't do this because this will launch World War III. He blows up the Sea Dragon, but at the same time they're in the dark side of the moon, so nobody knows, because at the same time the the Russian and the American, I think it's Danielle, isn't it? She fought for this mission. She was like, I've been a token
to be a captain.
She's like, I've been a token black, astronaut for years and years. I want to be a captain. And she's like, what are they going to do to us? They tell them they can't, because the Russians are like, no, we can't do this. There's a problem. They're obviously holding off for, because of what's going on the moon. And in the end, they're like, right, we're just doing this. We're going to bring these two ships together. They bring them together. That's when Ronald Reagan's like, oh, this is amazing. He's about to start World War III, sees them shaking hands, and decides basically, no, that shows that we can have peace, we can live together. But obviously it comes down to Ed. What has Ed done? Has Ed attacked the Russians on the dark side of the moon? But he hasn't. He blows up the Sea Dragon. Obviously says, it just blew up. It was a malfunction. Because obviously by blowing that up, that solves all the problems.
I was going to say, and the whole Danielle thing is nice, because you've got like, you've had all this story build up to the fact that like when the Russians come to train in where are they, Texas, I think it is, they're based in Texas, and like you getting them to know each other, because like I think at one point they bring in like all this like Russian food, and they're can we go and have hamburgers?
Can we have like, America?
They want. Yeah, they're in America. They want like American food, and they go to the bar, and they drink it up and like get to talking, and you see this relationship start building. So now obviously that is foreshadowing for when they actually get into space, and they're like they're both being told by their governments, by their version of NASA, to be like, no, you can't go, and they're like, start talking to it. They're just like, let's just do it. Like, you were up here, don't you want to just do this for ourselves? Like, all this time we've been up here and training for it, like, let's just get into it. So yeah, it was a really good moment, just a really strong moment. And like you said, obviously that has like big rippling effects across the political environment for both the US government and the Russian government to seek a ceasefire and to come to an agreement, some sort of agreement.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately it staves off World War III. You know, that's basically what it does, doesn't it? It staves off World.
But again, this was also a legitimate, like the Apollo Soyuz was another true life event as well, which is a cool thing to bring in. Like constantly, the show is like doing that, like adding elements.
It's got real life characters in as well, hasn't it? It's got real
Yeah.
life characters, so it is playing with the ideas of what you were already aware of, or you know, urban myths or whatever. So it is really good that it plays with it. And obviously then we got the big funeral scene. But that was why it was important to kill those two characters off. They had to be the collateral for everyone to say, this is great, but two people got killed.
Ultimate sacrifice.
They sacrificed themselves for us, and that's what makes it important, is that these two people sacrificed themselves so other people could live and give everyone a little bit of hope. And obviously we got the big funeral scene, and then we got the nice twist at the end where Margot, who was basically like head of NASA, wasn't she at that point? She was head of Johnson, wasn't she? Who's obviously she was obviously on the science side, and she's been fighting the military all the way through, you know, not being told things. And she's been like playing, basically, she's been talking in the back channels, obviously, to her Russian counterpart. She
Sergey.
Well, she made them aware, obviously, about the O-rings, because in this reality, the Challenger doesn't blow up because they've already found the O-rings, and they're having problems with their shuttle, and she basically lets them know, and they're the ones who have been wanting the science to win over, but you find out that when she walks to the grave of JFK, and which is quite poignant, and she's on the phone to him, and then you find out he's getting played by the KGB, and they're essentially using it. They're basically playing it, and I thought that was really interesting, because there's that idea in a lot of things of like, people, you're working for us. You don't know you're working for us, but you are essentially giving us all the information we need. You know, I thought that was really, really interesting, because that's
what I mean. Like this finale, man, it just hits so many levels, so many storylines that have been built up. I mean, even from like the prior season, like you know, the stuff with Gordo, like how you had that, like, you know, him going nuts and just not being able to handle it, and then finally being up there and kind of saving the day, and
Danielle taking the flak for it as well, like. Breaking her arm, and everyone thinking she was like.
Now she's like this massive hero,
but like people like, oh, you couldn't cope in space, you broke your arm, and we had to come home because of you, you know. And it was like, no, it was Gordo. Actually, he was the problem. So,
we even got to see the ants. The ants are still on the moon.
The ants are still there, and I kept on thinking about. All I could think about was the Simpsons episode with the ants.
Oh God.
That's all I could think about. But obviously at the end then we got this fantastic shot. I mean, at the end of the first season we got like the sea dragon reveal, and again that was like, to me when I saw that, I was coming out the water, it's just like, it's unnerving seeing something like that, because it's almost like, and it was brilliant the way they foreshadowed that, because obviously that was the big thing in this episode, one of the big key points. But it was just fantastic the way he pulled away from the grave, kept on going up past the moon, and
Come as you are.
Bit of Nirvana to show where we're going with it, and obviously went to Mars, and then we see a pair of boots appear on screen as well. We're told it's 1995, and they're on Mars. They've skipped forward like 10, 11 years,
something like that.
Skipped forward to Mars in 1995, and it's going to be really interesting to see. They're already filming season 3, and it's just going to be dead interesting, because obviously I was going to say, I think this got it got greenlit right before season 2 had aired. I think it was back in December. It got greenlit, so that obviously Apple's really happy with what it's doing. But I think it's going to be interesting again, because I don't fully think they aged up the characters very well, I must admit. Like, okay, Ed, they put a bit of grey in his hair. Gordo, they made him a little bit fat. But like Karen, she looked exactly the same. Tracy looked better. Like, and these people are supposed to be like 10 years. They were like 10 years older. So now Eden this will be. It was 1995. He's been a test pilot since like the late 50s,
60s.
50s and 60s. So he's gonna be, you'd imagine he was born in 1930s. So he's gonna be touching 70, isn't he? Let's be honest. He's gonna be touching 70. So it's gonna be interesting how they do that, and whether the young, Ed and Karen's wife, Ed and Karen's daughter. Is now in the program, whether Gordo and Tracy's son's in the program. And I know the plan is that so this is going to be set in like mid 90s, obviously 95, and then the next one will be set 2002, 3, 4, 5, whatever. Then the next season will be set 2015. Then the next season will be set 2025, which would be around the time that it's on. And then the last 2 seasons, I believe, are going to be set in the future. So it's going to be really, really interesting. And don't forget, the guy who wrote Battlestar Galactica, didn't he? And Star Trek.
Oh, did he?
Yeah. So he is a proper sci-fi thing. He's not just. He did Battlestar Galactica. He's a producer on Battlestar Galactica. He was a writer on Star Trek. Generations. He was a producer on Star Trek, The Next Generation. So he's also
quite the portfolio behind him.
Yeah. He's also done things like Outlander, and he also did Portlandia, which is quite interesting. I think he was an actor in that. So he's done. He's got a real proper sci-fi background, this guy, as well. So that's interesting for where it goes in the future, because it can go absolutely. If you're talking about jumping, I think he said he wants to do 7 seasons. Whether he'll get 7 seasons, I don't know. And maybe
I was going to say each season has to warrant another season. So you're only as good as your last season.
Of course.
In reality, which season 2 fantastic, but now you have to kind of follow it up.
Well, the writing, I think the thing about it is, though, the writing's so good that if it's got good writing, everything will fall into place. But that's really interesting, as I said. If it's now we're on Mars,
and if you keep mirroring it to real events, it gives it that air of, even though it's an alternate reality, it still feels like it's there. And then you've still got that tension with the Russians as well. Apparently, I think
you can imagine that evolving into China and stuff, though.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
And then you've got like the technology side of things, and then you've got the idea of like private enterprise coming into it, like we've got now with SpaceX and.
Well, I mean, some of the things I keep thinking about is like, okay, well, Russia got to the moon. How did that affect the rest of the world? Like, what does the rest? Not that we have to see it, but how does it affect it as far as like the space race programs? Like, like some of these things have changed now. Did that have a bearing on their success or their failures?
They're standing,
as we move forward.
They're standing in the world. Did it eventually?
Because you could have like a country that, we don't look at today and like, okay, yeah, it's just that country, but somehow they rise to power. Like
Qatar and places like that. The United Arab Emirates, places that have got a lot of money. Did they start getting involved? Does China start getting involved? Does it become private enterprise? People like Elon Musk and whoever they use in the show, they're going to start getting involved. Does that cause tensions? Does NASA become a wholly privatized thing? Does the military? How does the military involved? Do they, are they on Mars but also going to other places? Are they doing like manned missions to go around Mercury, or what I mean? Like these,
like even with the technology now, we've jumped into 95, so like that's the era, the birth of like the internet and things publicly, like.
But on this as well, because of what we've done in the show, the technology seems to be 10 years ahead anyway. Because like in the mid 80s, you've already got like mobile phones and you've got video calling as well.
Electric cars.
Electric toothbrushes.
Oh, whoa.
That's the big one. That's the game changer. Go on the moon with great teeth.
No plaque.
Yeah. So no, I'm really looking forward to it. As I said, they've already started, and I can't wait.
It's just such a gem of a show, and it hasn't been talked about enough. it's so good, and it really does deserve time and space, and like just for people to watch it. I mean, that's
Yeah.
the thing. I keep coming back to the fact that like I very publicly made fun of Apple Plus because I was like,
Yeah.
who's gonna want to watch this? Like the show just didn't look great, and they've really been putting out some great programming.
What is interesting, I suppose, is that, and I know we did, because it wasn't even that we laughed at them. It was like I can't get to see it. I can't watch this thing. I can't find where to watch it. And obviously, what changed for me is that they put it on the PlayStation, and that really helped. And obviously, as we go forward, it'll drop on like all new TVs and stuff. But they're putting the money where the mouth is. At the end of the day, they're basically saying we're going to make quality television. Come and watch it. And I mean, I'd be really interested to know what their numbers are in terms of how many people have got it. I mean, obviously, it's not obviously anywhere near Netflix or Disney Plus. But I'll be honest, the 3 shows that I've watched on it, Ted Lasso, For All Mankind and Mythic Quest, have been better than anything I've watched on Netflix for the last 12 months. Easily better. I mean, For All Mankind's better than anything I've watched all year, but I'll be honest with you. In terms of like it being its own little thing, obviously with Marvel and stuff, we know what we're going to get, but for something...
This is like a brand new property. I mean, like, because that's the thing as well, like how many times you get like remakes and things like, again, like you said, Marvel's Marvel, Star Wars is Star Wars, but this is just like, I come up with an original idea, put it together, and like there's nothing, not like this is based or adapted from a book or anything like that, so you know what I mean? It's an impressive feat if nothing else, because most of what Netflix is now is adaptations from books and comics, which I'm fine with. I do like it, but again, you've got to give credit where credit's due.
It's an original. It's an original thing. It's an original thing, and it takes a lot of bottle to do that. And you are putting a lot of. You're basically saying to the people who create these things, you've got full autonomy to go and do what you want. You're handing the power over to them, to the creators, and you, like you said, you watch the morning show, and you're basically just saying to people, this has got no IP at all. Go and make something out of it, and that's hard because this has had 2 seasons, and I don't think it's scratched I don't think it's hip hop culture in a way, and it really deserves to, because it's a really good show, and that's where
it's fantastic.
That's where the worries start coming in as a viewer. You're just like, oh, if no one's watching it, are they going to continue making it? But I think they will continue making it, because what you're doing is you're creating something that will drag people onto the. Even if, like, what's great about this is that more people, I imagine, will come over to Apple TV as it becomes more readily available on apps and stuff, and there'll already be a body of work for them there, and that's what's good.
I mean, like you said, you've got 2 seasons for All Mankind. Mythic Quest season 2 is coming up tomorrow. You've got the first season. Not long, into July, Ted Lasso's coming out with the season 2. You got season 1 before it, so again, now you've got like a bit of a catalogue,
and they've got big stars in them as well. They've got big stars in these shows as well to attract you.
Absolutely.
So, so that is For All Mankind. So if you haven't watched it, why were you listening to us?
ASMR, Ped.
Yeah. It's amazing, mate. It's just
putting people to sleep.
I loved it. The tension, the characters. It's mad. There's so many characters in it. And you have to like remember them all. I mean, I don't remember people. I have better things to do than remember people's names.
Yeah. You've got to hope. I think that the one thing I've been disappointed about is the lack of advertising and promotion around this stuff, because even like Mythic Quest, like, just haven't seen a lot about Mythic Quest.
I haven't.
Coming up in the season 2, it drops tomorrow, like, and I think they need to do something bigger and better and really push the stuff out to get people talking about it.
See, the thing about it is, I don't know whether it's because it's like there's this like Apple community that they are like striving to hit, and it's almost like you live on Apple appliances, and if you're on like Apple, you're on your music and all that kind of thing. I don't have. I mean, I've literally got all Apple except for my phone, which is the irony of it all. I've got a MacBook and a Mac desktop and stuff, but I haven't got a phone, and I don't go on the music. So I don't know whether the things come up on that and they're prompting you to go and watch it because you've already got it. I don't know whether it's like... It doesn't seem to be... You know the way Amazon are like... Amazon Prime is a selling point for... Prime is a selling point for getting Amazon Prime, the whole thing. It doesn't seem to be a sell... They don't seem to be trying to go... This is what you get if you buy a phone. This is what you get if you buy a MacBook. They don't seem to be... It's a really... And I'm not going to tell Apple how to advertise, by the way. I'm not going to tell them how to advertise. Clearly, they are the masters of it. But it's just an interesting way that they've done it. Like, as you said, when Stranger Things, obviously, trailer comes out, there's a massive buzz, and that started with the first ever trailer. They don't just put trailers on the channel. It has to go out. So it's interesting that they've sort of they almost just keep it in house. That's on them. And I don't know, maybe it's like that thing of like find it organically, and they're happy to build that content up.
Yeah, maybe that's the whole forecast for the future. Like, listen, we know this is good stuff. We just because Netflix said the same thing to Stranger Things, didn't he, when it first came out?
Yeah.
We know this is a good show. Just give it time. It's gonna take a while for it to get around people.
And actually,
obviously, it's spread way quicker than they were expecting.
And actually, Netflix now weren't really cancelling things. They've only just started to cancel things now because they've got so much property that they are starting to cancel things now after a season or after a couple of seasons. Whereas I think Apple because they've got like a core of good shows that have got great ratings back. Like Ted Lasso's won awards and it's like 9 out of 10. Yeah. So is this. So is Mythic Quest. So you're building that up. So even if people come into it late, you are finding that's got a great there's a great level of show out there. So
it's the same with Amazon Prime as well. I mean, you look at Prime and some of the stuff they've been doing, you're like, wow, they've focused on these really good key shows, and like anything else they add is just kind of like additional bonuses, but they've got this really good core of stuff that they're really investing heavily into.
Yeah, and I suppose if you're not going out and making a lot of shows and you are keeping it to a core set of shows, then you know where all that money's going and you are keeping it nice and tight. So if you haven't seen it, then like sort of forget about everything we said, go back to series 1, watch it, and like just try and forget about it and don't like remember anything we've said. Just remember that we said it's really, really good. It's really, really good. Really, really good. And 20 episodes of quality programming. There's also, if you go on the app as well, on the obviously on Apple TV, there's also like little featurettes, and some of them from the first season explain to you how some of the things were actually in reality, what their real counterpart was. So the Sea Dragon was a real thing, but it never got to this. It was never got to the point where they actually built it and stuff because they run out of money. So there's stuff like that. And in the second season, there's these like little videos of people doing video calls, and you just see someone talking to a screen, having a conversation. So there you go. Check that out if you haven't already. There you go. Yeah, we looking forward to Bad Batch tomorrow. The Mighty Ducks Game Changers, which is great. It's a great little show.
Did you watch last week?
Yeah, of course I watched last week. One question from last week's Game Changers just before we finish. How do those Mighty Duck shirts fit? It was 25 years
hockey,
ago.
I know hockey shirts are big because you got to fit all the padding and stuff. But what was his name? The little was a little Asian kid. Now he's like a fuck-grown adult. Like, I'm not having that. Yeah, that still was good. I imagine maybe they bought new shirts because they're part of the
I don't know.
Ducks alumni family.
Maybe. So we'll be watching that as well and starting Mythic Quest. Mythic Quest. If you want to know anything we're talking about or chat about anything we're talking about, join us on the Discord. If you want to know how to join us on the Discord, go to our Twitter, Instagram, or our Facebook. It is Nerd Social Club. If you're listening to this, we are doing live shows every week. So join us for that as well. If you can't watch the whole of this, then check out the podcast. That's on all platforms. and hopefully we'll be back next week. Hopefully, we'll see you later. Goodbye.